Gather around, boys and girls. Let's have a conversation about population control. Such a fun and lighthearted topic, am I right? Now, I've mentioned this in prior videos, but I want to mention it again here. For those of you all who don't know, my grandfather grew up in Germany during World War II. His dad was in the German army. His granddad was thrown in a prison camp for spreading anti-Yahtzee propaganda and helping out some Jewish families. So my grandfather was exposed to a lot. He saw a lot of crazy things as a child, needless to say. Now, he grew up, and when he turned around 18, he came to America and he joined the U.S. Army. And I would often have conversations with him as a kid about what it was like growing up in Germany at that time. And I was always curious, why would the entire world be at war? And I would ask him these questions, and he would give me these long, elaborate answers that at the time I could barely understand. I was a kid, but I still was fascinated. And I remember him vividly. As he was giving me an explanation one day, he mentioned population control. And at that age, I didn't know what population control was. And it was just something that stuck out to me. It was like a memory that sat with me for years. And of course, one day I got older and I understood what population control was. And then, of course, one day I got even older and I got into a lot of the theories out there about population control. But it's just something that always stuck with me. That he mentioned population control when discussing World War II because, these big military conflicts, they wipe out tons and tons of people. And the reason this memory came back to me recently is because of the conflict that's going on right now between Russia and Ukraine. We were supposed to be reaching this period where this war should be winding down. We finally reached this period where it looked like there was going to be legitimate peace talks, maybe a legitimate ceasefire, something along those lines. But we're witnessing countries in Europe like spaz out. I don't know what other way to explain it, but right in this time where when we think we're getting close to peace, these European countries, these other countries in NATO, they're like flipping out. They're adamant about keeping this war going. And literally, as Trump is on the phone having conversations with Putin, he's having conversations with Zelensky. Now, places like the UK and France are like, no, straight up, we're sending troops there. We're sending troops to Ukraine this week, basically trying to sabotage any peace talk efforts. They claim that, we're sending them there for peaceful reasons. No, they're trying to sabotage any peacemaking efforts. And when you really look at what's going on right now, and you have just a basic understanding of this conflict, and you understand that not everything is cut and dry, it's not what they tell you on the news, you would see that the moves that are being made by these other countries that are in NATO, and more specifically UK, France, places like that, these moves do not make sense. It only makes sense if the UK and France want all-out war with Russia, but that's not something they could handle. So why are they walking us into World War III? Why are they so bloodthirsty and ready to send their kids to die? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with population control. And you see, I feel like the U.S. was right on board this agenda before Donald Trump took over. If you haven't noticed, and you should have noticed by now, all of these Western countries, okay? US, Canada, UK, all of these European countries, they've been replacing their population for a while now. They've been flooding the country with immigrants, basically trying to replace their population. It's been happening here in America. Now it's not happening as much, but it's definitely a problem here in America. It was one of the number one issues in the recent election. Regardless of who you voted for, you have to at least acknowledge that it's an issue. Maybe you're fine with your country being flooded with immigrants, but at the very least, you acknowledge that it's happening. It's not about if you agree or disagree. You have to acknowledge that it's happening. We know it's happening right here in America. And it's happening in all of these other countries in Europe. All of these Western countries over the past recent years have been just flooding their countries with immigrants and refugees and what have you, replacing their native populations, if you will. And right now, ever since Trump won the presidency, a lot of these countries over in Europe, they've been kind of panicking. And they've been complaining about a uprising of what they call right-wing ideologies and far-right ideologies. But what they mean by far-right is basically part of their native population, like some of the actual British people, some of the actual Irish people, some of the actual French people are tired of their countries being flooded with these illegal immigrants, a lot of which are committing heinous crimes, attacking the populations, ramming their cars into people, knife attacks every time you turn around. So when people have a problem with the issues that are being caused by their countries being flooded with immigrants, they're labeled with, oh, you're far right, you're a Yahtzee, you're this, you're a bad person, yada, yada, yada. So all of these Western countries, they're getting fed up because it looks like people are starting to take a stand. People are starting to notice that they're being replaced and that their countries are being ruined and that their cities are being run into the ground and that their kids are being attacked at the bus stop. Their women are being attacked. They see it. They're noticing it. They have a problem with it. Some of them are starting to vote differently. And they notice this change in society. They notice the pendulum is swinging back to where people aren't going to be as accepting of what they've had going on in these countries for a while. So one of their answers is, hey, we're just going to send you off to die in Russia. We're going to send you guys off to die in a war with Russia. Because when you look at how they're just walking us right into World War III, it doesn't make sense. There's nothing to gain here. These people do not give a damn about Ukraine. Do not let them fool you into thinking they do. Now, as they keep tough talking and talking about sending troops to Ukraine, who do you think they're going to send? When the UK and France and these other countries in NATO talk about sending troops to fight Russia, to fight in World War III, who do you think they're going to send? They're not going to send the machete gangs off the streets. They're not going to send the grooming gangs from the UK. They're not going to send the radical Islamists that are driving their cars through Christmas markets in Germany. They're not sending them to fight in the war with Russia. No, they're going to send young actual British men, young actual Frenchmen, young actual Germans, and just insert country name here. They're going to send people who actually have ties to their country, that actually care about their country, that actually care about their homeland. And as they send them off to die in an endless, senseless war that they know they can't win, they're going to be dragging in refugees from other wars that they fought in the past. Oh, we need to help the people in Haiti because we just bombed them a couple weeks ago. We need to bring these people in from Somalia because we just bombed them a few days ago. Meanwhile, we're going to send our British lads, you know what I mean? We're going to send our actual men who were raised here and whose fathers were raised here. You know, we're going to send them to war to fight, and we're going to replace them slowly with a population that at least the elites think are easier to control. Now, they know that the people that they're pouring into these countries, they know that they pose certain threats, but they view them as low-level threats that the elites don't have to worry about. The elites aren't worried about random things that are happening on the ground to people like me and people like you. They're worried about more high-level threats, more organized threats, okay? So when they bring in people from third world countries, they don't worry about it because they know that, oh yeah, they may wreak havoc in your community, but they're not going to be organized. They're not going to be able to take us on or take us down or really form any sort of, legitimate opposition to us. So when you look at the conflict that's happening right now, and just like I wonder, you guys wonder, why in the hell, when we're right here near ending this conflict, why are they escalating things to a whole new level? Like they're taking things to, like when we should be de-escalating, getting ready for ceasefires, getting ready to wind this war down and end it. They're taking things to a whole nother level, talking about, oh, we're sending troops right now. We're going to dominate the land, air, and sea. They're saying all types of crazy stuff. Zelensky is literally on French media talking about, I know for a fact Putin's going to die soon. So understand that a lot of this, when you look at it, it doesn't make sense from any other standpoint other than y'all just want people to die. I mean, when you really look at it, there's nothing to gain from this massive conflict with Russia. The UK, France, none of these countries have anything to gain. And as they tell their population, oh, Russia's going to invade, they're not really worried about that. They know that they're the ones that are poking the bear, causing the problem. And as these countries who have basically crapped all over, the men who are actually from these countries, you know what I mean? Like, as the UK craps all over young white men in their country, they're literally passing new laws. The UK is passing new laws right now to ensure that white men get harsher sentences than any other type of person. White men, if they commit a crime, they're going to get sentenced 10 times worse than any other person. They're literally passing discrimination laws to discriminate against white men in the UK. But when it comes time to send some soldiers to the Russian meat grinder, they're going to send the young white men who they're discriminating against.
And frankly, the judges now are looking back at the elected politicians here, both Sir Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, who is a Justice Secretary, and saying, I'm afraid to say, these are what's going to happen. And from Tuesday, this is what will happen. Judges will prepare pre-sentencing reports when necessary. And if someone is of ethnic, cultural or faith minority, or a young person under 25, or a woman, or a pregnant woman, they will get a special sentencing report. Normally, those pre-sentencing reports do mean that the sentence is mitigated, that time is taken off for a jail term, for example. What it means, though, is that white men are going to be treated a lot tougher by judges from Tuesday.
Yeah, you probably thought I was BSing. You probably thought that wasn't some real stuff that's actually happening, didn't you? Well, unfortunately, that's real. That's reality. So once you understand that the leadership in a lot of these European countries and a lot of these countries in NATO, once you realize that the leadership in these countries absolutely despise their native populations and are working towards replacing them already, you will better understand why they're so gung-ho about war with Russia. Because none of this makes sense from a peacekeeping standpoint. None of this makes sense from a military standpoint. None of this makes sense from an economic standpoint. So the only other option we really have is, oh, you guys are just some bloodthirsty, crazed individuals that obviously have hidden agendas behind why you are so just adamant about walking the young men and women in your countries right into just, if you guys have seen some of the footage of the front lines in Ukraine. It's just so upsetting knowing that we should be here talking about, oh, a peace deal has just been worked out. But instead, we're here talking about this. I'm sorry, it's really frustrating to me. But they're ready to just send these young men and women, and I have to say women because half their armies are women now. They're ready to just send them to the meat grinder for their hidden agendas. But like I said, at the end of the day, when you look at it, once you understand that a lot of it has to do with population control, you could start making better sense out of what's happening here. I'm hoping and I'm praying that some type of resolution can come about that will bring an end to this conflict. But right now, it doesn't look like these countries over here in Europe, it doesn't look like the UK, France, and other parties are involved as well. It doesn't look like they're going to allow peace. It looks like instead of allowing peace, they're going to just dive headfirst into war with Russia. At least right now. Things constantly change. And, you know, I only touch on this war and this conflict when I notice that things are heating up and boiling up to a point where, you know, everyone can get involved. And there's been several points where it got to that. And then sometimes it kind of dies down a little bit. But right now, things are just as bad, if not worse, as they've ever been in this conflict. And warmer weather is coming. I'm hoping they bring about an end to this now. But if they don't, we know what it's about. It's about population control. But for now, you guys let me know what you think about this, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.